This is Matthew Cratter from Trader University, and today I want to talk about Bitcoin, Elon Musk, and Tesla. We're getting a lot of news this morning surrounding Musk's latest tweet that shows Bitcoin and then a broken heart and a couple breaking up. So there's a lot of speculation that Tesla might be selling its Bitcoin. We don't really know, obviously. There haven't been any disclosures, but this tweet is having a big impact on the market. The tweet came out approximately here last night, and Bitcoin's selling off almost certainly as a result of this tweet. Now, we've talked about this before, but I think that Elon does understand Bitcoin. He's a very smart guy, but I believe he's subject to other pressures, which we're going to be talking about. Now, Jack Dorsey in this tweet talks about how Bitcoin incentivizes renewable energy. And we know that Musk agrees because he's the top response here, saying true. We also know that Musk wants to make humanity a multi-planet species. And everyone knows, though this is often elided, that space travel is very energy intensive and, at least in its current form, is very bad for the environment, especially the atmosphere. To reach orbit, the SpaceX Falcon burns 400 metric tons of kerosene and emits more carbon dioxide in a few minutes than an average car would in more than 2 centuries. And so Musk understands these trade-offs. He understands that if you want to move to a more advanced civilization, and one way of measuring that is by measuring energy usage. We've talked about the Kardashev Scale before, and this basically defines different types of civilizations by their energy usage. Type 1 civilization, planetary civilization, can use and store all the energy available on this planet. Type 2 can control and use all the energy on the scale of its planetary system or solar system. And then Type 3 can use and control the energy of an entire galaxy. Now, one way of doing this is you can wrap a star, you can wrap your local star in a Dyson sphere, harvest the energy this way. The point is that there is huge amounts of energy available in the universe. There are various trade-offs here, and I think what's happening is that Musk does understand all of this, but he's subject to pressures and regulatory pressures, pressure from ESG activists and institutional investors, and this is becoming more and more clear to me over time. I'll give you a really easy way of looking at it. If we look at Tesla's income statement for the last year, for 2020, for the complete year, we can see that the total revenue was about $31.5 billion. Pre-tax income, after you net out all the expenses, but you don't net out taxes, was about $1.15 billion. These are measured in thousands if you wonder why they're missing 3 zeros. But pre-tax income for last year, $1.15 billion. Out of that, the majority of it was actually selling carbon credits. So according to this Bloomberg article, regulatory credit revenue, another way of saying selling carbon credits, was about $1.4 billion in 2020. So if you take out these carbon credits, Tesla actually lost money again last year. So this would seem to me to be the Musk bought Bitcoin. He began to get pressure from ESG investors, and he may be selling it now as a result. If you're finding this video helpful, be sure to hit that subscribe and like button. Maybe share this video with a few friends of who are fans of Tesla or fans of Elon Musk or interested in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. So this leads us to the question that I've been getting from a lot of you: how can Bitcoin ever become a real new currency or a store of value like gold 2.0, when it's subject to a simple tweet? When someone, albeit one of the world's richest men, can do a tweet and Bitcoin moves this much. Well, if you've been in the markets for a long time, as I have, you'll remember Henry Blodgett, who was one of the internet stock pumpers in the late 90s. He was actually very smart in terms of where the internet was going to eventually go. I remember in 2002 when he turned less bullish on Amazon. There was a lot of talk as this had been basically the bear market in internet stocks had been going on for almost 2 years at this point, a year and a half, and Wall Street was turning very bearish on the internet. And there were a lot of articles saying, how can the internet ever survive if Wall Street is not on board? The answer, the reason the internet survived is that it was very useful to many, many people globally. And it turns out that all the fears about stock analysts turning bearish on Amazon at probably the worst possible time, fairly close to Amazon's stock price bottom, that this had no effect on Amazon's long-term business. A more direct example that deals with store value like gold. Gold is losing market share to Bitcoin, but it does have this history. I remember in the late 90s, there were a lot of people who liked gold, but they were very afraid of buying it because they said, how can gold remain a store of value when you have all these central banks selling? And one reason gold's prices were so low is you had the Bank of England selling off the UK gold reserves. This was done under Gordon Brown, and it was humorously known as Brown's bottom. He basically dumped most of half of the UK's gold reserves in a series of gold auctions right at the bottom of the 20-year bear market in gold. It turns out gold has special properties. It's very scarce. It doesn't rust, etc. We've talked a lot about this. We've also talked about how Bitcoin improves upon all these things. That being said, ultimately, the central bank selling did not matter at all. We can see here where Gordon Brown was selling his gold. Gold had done nothing really since the late 70s, early 80s, and this was the bottom in gold prices. So I think something similar is going on here. The amount of money outside of Bitcoin, or the amount of value or the amount of wealth, is still much larger than Bitcoin's market cap. And so as there's news, or people, various famous people or very wealthy people like Musk have their opinions on Bitcoin, it can move it quite a bit, in the same way that stocks like Amazon and Apple and Facebook, they used to be much more volatile than they are now. That being said, they still have been excellent stores of value over the past 20 years. Gold has been an excellent store of value for thousands of years, in spite of central banks. Even with the central banks selling, it did provide temporary price pressure on gold, but it did not destroy gold. The thing that's going to destroy gold, of course, is Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin does not need Elon Musk. It doesn't need any billionaires. Bitcoin is a hungry energy monster that's driven by incentives. It's completely decentralized. If you kick the miners out of China, they'll move to adjacent countries. It really cannot be stopped. And like most things, like the internet, which uses 10% of global electricity, most nice things use a lot of electricity. They use a lot of energy. No one's suggesting shutting down the internet, because a lot of the electricity that goes into it is derived from dirty energy. Bitcoin doesn't really care what it's eating. It will gobble up fossil fuels. It will also gobble up renewables, just like the internet. And hopefully over time, we can transition all energy sources, or all electricity production sources, to cleaner forms of energy. But in the meantime, no one can stop Bitcoin. It's a lot like the internet. And we'll continue to see articles about how Bitcoin's going to burn the planet down. This is from 2018. The thing is that Bitcoin energy usage does not increase per transaction. Also, each transaction can be very large on the blockchain. So there are a lot of intricacies there that I've discussed in other videos. But the bigger point that I want to make here is that we've seen this sort of energy FUD before, especially in the context of the early internet. This is an article from May of 1999 talking about how evil PCs and the internet are, because they use electricity that's generated from coal. And this was true at the time. Obviously, coal usage has declined slightly since then. That being said, the internet was and is a very useful thing, and as such, it has survived. and people continue to use it. No one's suggesting to shutting down the internet just because they don't like part of its energy usage. So we've seen this many times before. Bitcoin has had many billionaire detractors. Ray Dalio railed against Bitcoin for many, many years, calling Bitcoin a bubble and a Ponzi scheme, etc. When he did his research, he finally came around, and he now, we learned in May of this year, just a couple of days ago, that he now owns some Bitcoin. So Bitcoin has a way of changing people and changing the world. In terms of Elon's tweets and their power over Bitcoin, the market has already begun to price in his tweets. It's not moving as much on a percentage basis from his latest tweets. And this is how markets work over time. They begin to digest all the existing information. And as such, Elon's tweets and their power to move the price of Bitcoin is diminishing and will continue to diminish over time because he can only say the same thing so many times. And it's important to realize that Bitcoin has no leaders. It does not need elite billionaires. We're very happy to have someone like Michael Saylor who understands Bitcoin and has an honest engineering mindset, unlike Musk and the sort of energy FUD that he's been throwing at Bitcoin. But that being said, Bitcoin has no royalty. It doesn't need famous people to survive. It is a very useful technology for storing wealth, especially or even in developing countries where the local currencies are unstable. And as such, it's just like the internet. It'll continue to devour energy. It's an autonomous organism. It'll keep growing. It'll keep seeking out the cheapest form of energy. And the good news is that ultimately that is things like hydro, solar, wind. These have marginal costs of energy production that are really trending towards zero. Obviously, nuclear energy, which is a more controversial thing. But Bitcoin does use a lot of stranded energy. It already uses a lot of renewables, hydroelectric in China, for example. And so it really cannot be stopped because it's a useful technology. And it's quite hypocritical to single out Bitcoin for its energy usage while not criticizing the energy usage of billionaires' private jets, of Christmas lights, of fiat, the fiat currency system, all the wars needed to preserve the US dollar's reserve status. And as such, what Elon has done is a real disservice to Bitcoin. Bitcoin doesn't care. Bitcoin will keep moving on. But I personally hope that Elon just dumps his Bitcoin and never comes back because we don't really need people like him. It's a huge distraction, and he seems unwilling to really engage at an honest intellectual level. And I think we know why. He's quite dependent on his ESG investors for Tesla. If you found this video helpful, be sure to hit that subscribe and like button. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I publish my next video. And let me know your questions and comments in the comment section below. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.